Hello and welcome to, I think this is one of our last power rankings.
Don't cry, Justin.
I'm about to cry because I enjoy having an excuse to talk to you every single week. But yes, these are your JM football power rankings. The teams are getting way less. It's slim pickings out here, but we're still doing it. We're still talking ball. These are your NFL power rankings heading into the conference championship round. I'm Justin Penik. This is Dalton Feely. Dalton, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8. They were eliminated, played a good game against our Detroit Lions. Yep. The Texans are at 7. The Packers are at 6. The Bills are at 5.
The Bills. We should have played Taps. We should have had Taps loaded. It's a team that we've been really high on the entire year. Give credit to the Chiefs for beating Buffalo in Buffalo, Mahomes' first playoff game. But, man, the Bills, really big missed opportunity. Multiple missed opportunities, and they make a great play on Mecole Hardman to keep him in the game late in the second half. Very upset about Buffalo, but congrats to the Chiefs.
Congrats to the Chiefs. So we'll talk Buffalo first. Not a single play of 20-plus yards that game. That was really significant to me. I think the Chiefs had 6. And this isn't, even the Chiefs and the Bills, it's not you're the same Chiefs and Bills they're number 1 and number 2 in explosive pass plays because the NFL has caught on how to play these guys. But still, I was very surprised to see there's such a discrepancy of, the Chiefs getting 6 20-plus yard pass plays, which is good. That's a good number for a football game that you want. Hey, if you want to win and you get 6 20-plus yard plays, odds are you're going to win. But the Bills having 0, man, tough. And Josh Allen's average depth of target was really, really low. It looked like it was just part of the game plan of, kind of drop back, get the ball out of his hands quick, and kind of checking stuff down. I think it was 5.5 yards his average depth of target, which is really almost 25th percentile or lower.
Yeah.
So obviously they had some deep shots at the end of the game. My brain thinking, well, what was different about the Bills' offense is Gabe Davis, but that's not a good enough excuse for me to to be that bad in a way.
I mean, listen, if we're saying Gabe, big game Gabe, if you will, is the reason why this offense struggled versus the Chiefs. It's not. Now, granted, I know when they played in the 13-second game, Gabe Davis went off.
Right.
One of the best playoff games by a wide receiver in NFL history. But again, he's not a caliber of player where you're missing him, and this offense should struggle as it did. And it's funny that we mentioned, there's different levels of struggle because they weren't really as explosive. As you mentioned, they didn't have any 20-yard plays in that game. It was the 4th time in Josh Allen's career out of 104 games where he didn't have a 20-yard play. So that's a huge rate. I mean, it's a bad time for him to have that in that game. I'm really worried about the Bills in the future, man. This was their window. This was the most.
They had to do it.
Yeah, the Chiefs have been their kryptonite. This was the time where they were vulnerable. We've mentioned this Chiefs offense hasn't been the level they had been. The explosive rate has been down, especially since Tyreek's been traded from last year. But, man, look at the Bills' off-season free agency. They have Gabe Davis, Micah Hyde, Leonard Floyd, Dane Jackson, AJ Epinesa, Taylor Rapp, Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, Linval Joseph. A lot of defensive guys.
Those are good players, too, for them.
And I wouldn't say there's many stars outside of, let's say, Micah Hyde.
Right, but they're good players.
But they're good defensive.
But even Linval Joseph was a great acquisition for them.
Daquan Jones had a fantastic 2023. He was hurt and came back.
They might have acquired Joseph after Daquan Jones went down.
Yeah, and listen, Leonard Floyd has been a pretty darn good pass rusher for his career too. A rotational guy. Epinesa out of Iowa. These are contributing players on that team. Josh Allen's cap hit's going to go up for the first time. And this is going to be a really tough road for the Bills going to the future. I do want to mention it's from Hembo on Twitter. 2019, he made 4.8, 2020, 5.9, and cap hit 21, 10.2, 2022, 16.4, 2023, 18.6. It goes up and up. 2024, $47.1 million, Josh Allen's cap hit. It's going to get a lot harder for Buffalo to build a team around that contract, and teams figure it out. But, man, this was their window, and look, to me, it feels like Buffalo, the window is starting to close, and it might have closed already.
You got to draft well, and I don't think, Brandon Beane's a good GM, but I wouldn't classify him as the best drafter in the world. Drafted Josh Allen, and that's a huge win.
Sure.
But I wouldn't consider him they really fully build that team around the draft. Obviously they went out and they've gotten Stephon Diggs. The offensive line has gotten better through the years, but it was a question for the last couple of years. So they're going to have to draft well. And as somebody, hey, I looked into Brandon Beane's draft history when, Joe Shane, the assistant GM for the Giants, went over there. So they're going to have to build through the draft. That's the main priority. It's the main priority for all these teams. Now, you mentioned that it was the Bills' window now, and I think that bleeds into the Chiefs, but I want to put a pin in that conversation.
Lombardi land.
I want to put a pin in that conversation because we've talked a lot about the Texans. I'm really excited for their team. They were not supposed to be here. They weren't even not supposed to be here. They weren't even supposed to be relevant this year because
basement team. It should have been.
Yeah, man.
A team fighting for the first overall pick last year turns into winning the AFC South.
And even clowned on a little bit. Oh, well, you traded your first round pick, and that was the Will Anderson trade. It was the Will Anderson trade. They didn't even trade. They didn't even make that trade for a quarterback. Which it's like if you make the trade for a quarterback, it's seen as like, yeah, you can go and do that. But trading away first round picks for non quarterbacks usually is like a little bit of a no. And it fully worked out for him in year one, and I'm excited for what they can do.
And I will say about that trade, I could be wrong, but I believe another key part of that trade was when they did it, they traded the Cleveland Browns pick that they acquired from the Deshaun Watson deal.
Now they still have a first round pick this year. They have the Browns first round.
Excuse me, I misspoke. When they made the deal, they traded their own pick. Thank you.
Yes.
I meant to say when they made the deal originally, they got clowned on too because they traded their original pick for 2024 rather than the one they acquired from Cleveland for the Deshaun Watson deal. And then in the wild card weekend, the Texans beat Cleveland. Their pick becomes worse, and the Cleveland's is better. And therefore, they held on to the correct pick, which makes it even better of a trade for Houston when they traded up for Will Anderson.
100%. So they're still going to have enough draft capital to, even though they went up and they got their guy in Will Anderson, they're still going to have enough draft capital to continue to really have a good draft. And they knocked last year's out of the park. So I'm really excited to see what they can do in the future. CJ Stroud, awesome year. Even though, hey, they got their ass kicked. It was a bad game. But what an awesome year. Really excited to be a Texans fan. Packers, really excited for that team. Youngest team in the NFL. They were a better football team than the San Francisco 49ers for, I guess it was 55 minutes of that game. And Jordan Love was clearly the better quarterback than Brock Purdy for, let's say, 55 minutes of that game.
Yep.
But, talent matters. And, there's a 49ers team that was a lot more talented. Brock Purdy was good in the right moments, and young quarterback. Well, Jordan Love may be older, but experience wise, a younger quarterback in Jordan Love, made the mistake at the wrong time, and that's what I think it comes down to. But again, excited for that Packers team. Yeah. They have a very good young core. A lot of those guys still on their rookie contracts. They're not a team that goes out and historically spends. But they're going to continue to build through the draft, and even if they want to make a splash, I think they're going to be able to do it. Here's the main conversation I want to have, though. Do you have anything to say on the Packers?
I just want to say really impressed with Jordan Love.
Very much.
Really impressed. Like the last 6 games, he threw for at least 2 touchdowns. Very efficient. One of the things when he came out of Utah State, and the biggest no-no on him was he played a little too much hero ball, a little Superman, if you will, where he thought he had to make every throw possible, and he thought he could make every throw possible, but you can't. And especially at the NFL when you're playing defensive talent and caliber that it is, you can't do that. And Jordan Love kind of figured out in year 3, first year starting, that, man, I can just make my throws. I can trust my young receivers, and it works. And he was very efficient. He still
had, man, some really, I really watched this against Dallas where not necessarily hero ball, Mahomes or Allen running around in a circle for 10 seconds, but manipulating the pocket and, even making some throws kind of off his back foot.
And especially that Dallas game. He was making a couple throws where
different arm
on him.
slots and arm angles. So the stuff that you saw a couple years ago, it was there. And it's it's finally kind of coming together. But you did mention, the one downside to his scouting report is, hey, I can make any throw possible. And that was the downside of that final interception.
Yeah, 100%. And the risk aversion, he finally learned, I can make those throws, but I don't need to do it all the time.
Right. All right, quick conversation on the Bucs. Great year. Good year.
Yeah, really good year. Shocking. Shockingly good. I didn't think there would be, I thought the Saints or Falcons would leapfrog them in the division. They win the division yet again, man. Baker Mayfield comes over and has a pretty solid season, shockingly.
So, you could talk about this and that with the Bucs, but I think the main conversation is what's next for Baker Mayfield? Is it in Tampa Bay? Is it with another team? And my main question is, the Deshaun Watson deal, the fully guaranteed deal, the richest contract in NFL history, when he took off a year and then he came back and he looked bad, and he has been bad.
Right.
That changed a lot of things. I think it changed a lot of things.
Quarterback market, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
And then you have but at least you could say with Deshaun Watson that the talent is there, right? And he's had the production, even with the year off. That's the argument there.
Right.
But with Daniel Jones, I think the Daniel Jones contract last year also changed things, where he had one good year. And if anything, it wasn't even that great statistically on paper. But he had one good year of quarterback play that's surrounded with wins. He got $40 million.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, on paper, much better season than Daniel Jones in 2022. What does his contract look like?
So we're playing a surprise game. I had it pulled up. I didn't tell you about it. I just want to mention first, before we play my surprise game, looking at contracts in the NFL, quarterback contracts, in terms of value. Baker Mayfield this year. Do you know where he ranks? This is surprise game number 1.
I think he doesn't have void years attached to some Tampa Bay stuff. So
just 1 year. I'm just talking about this year because that's his year.
It doesn't start with a 2, does it?
He ranks 59th in value at contract. Makes $4 million a year. It's 1 for 4 total value. So a cumulative.
So what was the cap hit this year?
The cap hit for him. Let me scroll up. Baker Mayfield ranks 59th in value. He signed that 1 for $4 million deal with the Bucs. That's game number 1. Like, that's shocking, right? My second game is Baker Mayfield throws for 4,000 yards for the first time in his career. Had a very good year, leads the Bucs to the NFC South title, gets him into the divisional round, wins a playoff game. What does he make this offseason? You alluded to the Daniel Jones contract.
That's a $40 million a year contract.
$40 million per year. I don't know. Do you commit 40? Let's play a game. I'm going to name you some quarterbacks and what they make per year. And you tell me, yes, he's worth it, or yes, he's better, or no, he's not better. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You already said Daniel Jones. Let's start with Ryan Tannehill.
Right now, Baker Mayfield's better than Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill, okay. That makes $29.5 per year. Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Signed a 4 for $118.
And at the time, Ryan Tannehill's contract kind of changed the landscape too. Of wow, this quarterback got a lot of big money, even though he may not necessarily fully quote unquote deserve it.
Sure. Geno Smith.
Geno's better.
Geno's better. Okay, he makes $25 per year.
And I think that's a kind of like a little bit of a steal contract by the Seahawks.
3 for $75 this offseason he signed going into this year. Jimmy G got benched.
Baker Mayfield's better.
Baker Mayfield's better. 24.25. Jared Goff.
Jared Goff's on a much better team. Jared Goff's better.
I would agree. 33.5. Last one. Here we go. Derek Carr.
Played in the same division. I mean, Baker Mayfield had a better year than Derek Carr.
$37.5 million. So that's the range of talent, I would say. We're in a very similar spot with where Baker ranks in terms of play. Yeah. The contracts skew a little bit based on talent, but $25 million was the lowest I said. I think based on the current quarterback market, I would be shocked if he doesn't make that. What else does he have to prove? Yeah. He's a former first-round pick. He does a great job in his first year at Tampa Bay with those for over 4,000 yards, leads into the divisional game. I'm repeating myself, but man, if Daniel Jones made $40 million after basically one good season, what does Baker have to do to make at least $20 to $25 million per year?
Giants really screwed themselves because Joe Shane was like, yeah, Daniel Jones is going to be back. Like he negotiated against himself.
Yeah.
And that was the mistake. And I think a lot of GMs are now looking at that situation and being like, well, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not negotiate. And I guarantee a lot of GMs try not to negotiate against themselves anyway. Like, Bucs GM postseason presser, probably not going to make any kind of, hopefully, maybe not, commit any kind of, committal to any side of it. We have over the cap, 2023 over the cap valuation had Baker Mayfield at $32 million.
$32 million. Wow. Okay. That's crazy, but that's right around where we're talking about these guys, man. It's very reasonable. I would say 25 has got to be the bar.
Yeah. Baker does have 2024 to 2027. He has 4 void years. Now the dead money is nothing. It's nothing like major. It's like 2.3 dead money in 2024, and then it gets less from there going to 2027. So a lot of void years. The way that the Bucs structure that this was an amazing the value that you just mentioned. The value that Bucs just got out of this contract for 1 year of Baker Mayfield is crazy. But now there's the question of, all right, if you let Baker Mayfield walk and then the Bucs are, you have a huge question mark at quarterback again, and it's like you never know if you're going to get yourself back into this playoff situation again. Or if you sign him and you commit too much to him, and I know the Bucs are already committing a lot of money to a lot of guys on that team, then you could make a mistake and you could find yourself Baker Mayfield's play regresses, the offense coordinator leaves
Dave
eventually.
Canales could get a head coaching job this offseason,
and then that changes everything. So I wanted to talk about that. I know we spent a little bit of time on that. But Dalton, you want to get to Lombardi land?
Everyone's favorite land. Here we go, Justin Penik. You tell us where we're at.
4 Lions. You ready for this?
Yeah.
This was a me call.
This was a you call. But that's okay.
3 49ers, 2 Chiefs make a jump, and 1 Ravens.
So I want you to explain to everyone why you have the Niners 3 and the Chiefs 2 now.
The 49ers are not playing good football right now. They're not playing 49er football. I think they are a different team without Deebo Samuel. While I talk, can you search Deebo Samuel on Twitter and get an injury report update as we record this?
Sure thing. Last I heard, as of yesterday, was 50-50, but continue.
50-50?
Yeah. I'll tell you if there's anything new, which I don't believe so.
Between all the time off, between how they played before their bye week anyway, and how they played against the Packers, which a young team that has never, that core and that nucleus have not been in that situation. And they went toe-to-toe with San Fran in the rain, on the road, and played like a much better football team. And I know the last 5 minutes of the game matters, and I know the 49ers won the game, and that matters, right?
Right.
But the Packers play like a better football team, and they very much should not have played like a better football team. But the Packers were playing better football at the right time. And I think the Lions are playing better football at the right time than the 49ers. I think the Lions are going to beat the 49ers. I'm kind of out on the Niners right now.
Wow, okay.
And it's not just because of the rain. Some people on Twitter were mentioning, Brock Purdy's not good in the rain. The last rain game that Brock Purdy played in was against the Eagles. Granted, the Eagles have been dead for a while too, but I'm pretty sure the weather was really bad that game, and Brock Purdy played amazing. So I don't think he was struggling with the hand, and maybe that played an impact. It's supposed to be sunny in Santa Clara, California this Sunday, but I think the Lions are playing like a better team right now.
Detroit's playing like a hot team.
Yeah.
When a hot team plays in the playoffs, it gets dangerous. And that was Green Bay, too. Green Bay went toe-to-toe with San Fran. They were arguably the hottest team in the NFC. And they went, shot for shot in San Francisco. Late score by Christian McCaffrey puts San Fran over the top. But, man, Love, like we mentioned before, outplayed Purdy for like 50 to 55 minutes of that game. And it is scary, right? Mr. Irrelevant, you have to become relevant in these playoff games. And we talk about all the all-pros on this team, whether it's Williams, Deebo, CMC, Kittle. Ayuk's a really good receiver too. You have so many talented players. Yeah. You got to elevate. If you're that good, and we're talking about you in the caliber of being a top 10 to 12 quarterback and being super efficient, and you were in the MVP race, you got to bring yourself in the playoffs, and you got to show out. And that is something I'm watching versus a Detroit Lions defense that is starting to get it seems. Mm-hmm. I had mentioned over the last few weeks, the secondary scares me a little bit. They're good young players, but they've struggled with miscommunications and whatnot. But man, I don't dislike you having the Lions above the Niners. I still think the Niners, if we're going paper on paper, Niners are a better team, better roster.
100%.
They should win this game. It's in San Fran. You can't count out the Detroit Lions. And in my lifetime, I've never uttered those words. You cannot count out the Detroit Lions. And that's impressive. A quick note before we moved on. You told me to look up Deebo Samuel information. It is still 50-50. No new news. I do want to mention a quote from Adam Schefter. This was on the Pat McAfee show. Schefter quoted, "He's not going to be at full strength if he's available to play, and that's problematic."
I agree.
Yes.
They're a different team.
That is a Schefter.
I've been talking about Trent Williams, but for how they use Deebo and his yards after the catch value, so much of this 40, and this is not a bad thing, so much of this 49er offense is predicated on yards after the catch, and you have Kittle that can do it, you have Ayuk that can do it, but Deebo, I think, is the best one at it.
Yeah.
And also, there were a lot of people talking, and I guess I had to agree with them. Where was Christian McCaffrey in the second half? You have one of the best players in the NFL. I mean, a guy that people are arguing for MVP at a running back that is basically unheard of in today's game, and they have a case, and you weren't using him. And then they finally started to use him in the fourth quarter, and that's when you see the win probability for I'm looking at win probability right now. That's when you see the win probability for the 49ers. When McCaffrey has some big plays, it goes up, and then Purdy's able to finish it.
I do want to say, too, play calling. We mentioned it on the live stream for JM Football. You're going to be streaming on conference championship games. Mobile, Alabama, Justin Penik, Bobby Skinner. But mentioning on stream.
It'll be the NFC game that we do.
What's that?
It'll be the NFC game that we do.
You're doing the NFC game? Yeah. Oh, nice. So there you go. You're doing a Niners-Lions. I do want to point out the first Shanahan's play calling was a little kooky in the second half.
Yes.
Jawan Jennings got a carry before Christian McCaffrey.
Now, I will say, I think we're calling our offense based on Deebo Samuel being in the game, but you're right.
You got players, not plays, right?
Right.
Jawan Jennings is not Deebo Samuel. His skill set doesn't even translate.
No.
They're not the same player. Jawan Jennings is a great contested catcher, great top of the route, making clutch third down catches. Good blocker. Deebo Samuel is a jackknife threat. I also want to point out that the Niners, defensively, first time they allowed a 100-yard rusher, individual rusher, since basically almost 2 years.
Guess who runs the ball well?
Detroit Lions run the ball
yes.
well. I'll point that out. And I also want to note that the Niners made a comeback. This is the first time that the Niners came back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter. Kyle Shanahan, that was always like a big stat. Oh, Kyle Shanahan's 0 for 38 in games when trailing by 10 or more in the fourth quarter. They finally did it. So even when they're not playing at their best ball, they're playing a hot team in Green Bay Packers in the divisional round, and they still found a way to win.
Yeah, because they're a good team.
They held the Packers. The Packers drove into the red zone 3 times, didn't score a touchdown. Field goal, turnover on downs on fourth down. First team in 20 years to reach the red zone on 3 consecutive drives to start a game and not make the playoff. Not score a touchdown. I can't speak. Sheesh.
Packers were really good running on early downs, and they were really good on throwing on late downs. So I'm going to flip this to the Lions a little bit here too. The Bucs were a really good run defense, and they had a little bit of a poor pass defense where they allow a lot of 20-plus yard plays. Even though the Lions weren't that explosive, but their pass rate over expected, the Lions, was very, very high. It was like plus 20%. I think you're going to see a little bit of flip. I think you're going to see their pass rate over expected not as high. Still think it's going to be higher because, it's smart to throw on early downs and you got to keep the 49ers on their heels. But I do think the Lions are going to commit to the run game more. I mean, you have Montgomery, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have both of those guys. People are still going to be yelling at Jahmyr Gibbs to be used more, which is fine. But, I mean, you have 2 backs that can be used.
Yeah.
And you don't want to pound.
In different ways, too.
And you don't want to be pounding anybody into the ground there. So I'm expecting the Lions to take it to the 49ers with the run game, balancing it with a nice balanced passing attack where Goff is going to get the ball out in rhythm, on time. Amon-Ra, you have Reynolds, you have Laporta. Laporta is going to make a huge difference in this game too. A weapon that I don't think a team like the 49ers has seen at tight end. They have Kittle, and you see how it's such an advantage for them. I think the Lions are going to come out here, and I think they're going to win.
Here's the one thing I want to add to that point, Penik, because you bring up such a good point about them running the ball well, especially versus 49ers defense. Packers versus the Niners. They went on a 14-play, 7-minute drive, got a 7.5-minute drive to start the game. Niners then got the ball for 3 minutes, 5 plays, they punt. Packers get the ball, 10 plays, 4.5-minute drive. They controlled the first quarter time of possession.
Yeah.
If Detroit can follow that same method and control the ball early on, score a touchdown, if they're able to execute in the red zone unlike Green Bay did and put a little pressure on Brock Purdy on that offense to match what they've just done, that's where we get a little fun. That's where I could see Detroit winning this game. They get the ball first. They score a touchdown on their first drive, control some of the clock. They can ground and pound, do a lot more of the play action off that run game. Ben Johnson calls a great game. They do have a shot. I 100% believe it. Jared Goff, too. Jared Goff, man. He's become the guy. 30 for 43 versus the Bucs, 287 yards. They had 3 long touchdown drives in the second half, which cemented that game versus Tampa Bay. And it's the first time since 1957 they've won 2 playoff games in a season. So Lions, restored the roar. Justin Penik's in on you. I don't know yet. I want to. I'm rooting for you. I am rooting for the Lions, but Niners, they're still a little scary to me.
I'm in on it, man. Chiefs are at 2, Ravens are at 1. So here's the pin in the conversation where I said, we're going to put a pin on the conversation on why it was the Bills window now. The Chiefs are having a down year.
Yep.
The Chiefs are going to get better this offseason. What position are they drafting in the first round this year, Dalton?
They're drafting a quarterback.
Give me a serious answer.
Sorry. The Chiefs, they'll be drafting a wide receiver in the first round.
No doubt. No doubt.
They will be drafting wide receiver in the first round.
There are plenty of wide receivers in this draft, including I'm just throwing a name out there, like Xavier Worthy from Texas.
And then the South Carolina receiver, Leggett.
There's just pick any receiver.
Yeah.
You have obviously the receivers at the top, the big three that can be taken in the top 10, some of them even in the top 5, 2 of them in the top 5. But then there's other receivers that are going to be filtered all through day 1 and then even early day 2 that you're going to have, Kansas City Chiefs are going to take one of those good wide receivers, and even an Xavier Worthy, even though seen as maybe a late round 1, early day 2, round 2 player, can easily translate into a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And if they go to a great situation with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, odds are maybe they will turn into a wide receiver 1. Rashee Rice, who everybody hated. People hated. All this guy could do is make contested catches. He's had 70-plus catches this year, and he's having a pretty solid postseason, right?
Absolutely.
So the Chiefs are having a down year, and this isn't, and me talking about next year's draft isn't dissing the Chiefs, or it's not shooing away their present. It's admiring what they're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
2023, this is a down year for the Chiefs, and I can very much see them beating the Ravens, going to the Super Bowl, and winning the Super Bowl. And this is a down year.
It's a down year. Rashee Rice, you had mentioned, in the draft process, he's a guy who goes in the second round. Late second round pick by the Kansas City Chiefs.
Who people thought he was, he shouldn't be going that high.
Yeah, it was quite shocking. And the guy finishes for 80 catches, or 79 catches to be exact, 938 yards, 7 touchdowns. And he's been a really big factor. If rookie Rashee Rice is not in this offense this year, they're not in the conference championship game.
Right.
They're not here. And that's bonkers. You're talking about a guy who's a second round pick who no one thought would be the wide receiver 1 on this team, was basically the guy. And Travis Kelce hadn't scored a touchdown since they played the Eagles on Monday Night Football until this week when he had 2 versus the Buffalo Bills. They need a pass catcher. Yeah. They really do, man. And this was the year. This was the year to beat the Chiefs. Goliath continues to be Goliath.
And I know this is not sexy radio, but
we are sexy radio.
Patrick Mahomes is just playing out of his mind.
It's Mahomes.
He's really fucking good.
He's Mahomes.
He had a perfect game.
Listen, if you have the opportunity, you had one big chance. It was McCole Hardman fumbles the ball right at the goal line, goes out of bounds, Bills got the ball back. That was your chance. Yeah. You needed to execute there, and you do not do that. You don't do it.
Yeah.
You fail again. Is that the drive they fake punted to DeMar Hamlin?
No, it was they fake punted to DeMar Hamlin, and then Hardman fumbled. So
gosh.
The Bills gave the Chiefs the game, and then the Chiefs kind of gave it right back. And then I think along those sequences, you also have the Stephon Diggs, drop. And then Josh Allen with in the 2-minute drill, misses touchdown there. He kind of was thrown off his back foot a little bit.
I was gonna say the missed throw. Sorry to interrupt. That's not on Allen. You have Chris Jones coming into his lap. Deion Dawkins is getting bullied, and but Allen can't step into the throw.
Those are missed opportunities.
Still, yeah.
And even if it's 1 or 2 missed opportunities and 1 or 2 mistakes, guess who didn't make the mistakes?
Josh Allen,
Patrick Mahomes.
I know.
He didn't make that mistake. So, he's inevitable, man, and they're going to get better. They're going to get better. Better beat them, Ravens. And let's talk about those Baltimore Ravens.
Once again, they're not going to move from the one spot in our power rankings because once again they look dominant. First half was a little shaky. I will mention about that Baltimore offense. D'Amico Ryans does a great job as the Texans defensive play caller. The blitzes they had early on, they were getting to Lamar. I think they had 2 sacks late in the first half, heading into halftime where they were getting home, and Lamar looked a little frazzled on that drive.
But guess what?
Todd Monken does a great job at halftime, and the Baltimore offense adjusts to those blitz calls.
Yep.
And they do a fantastic job in the second half.
Opening drive touchdown.
They open the game up, and they win this game.
What was Lamar doing that opening drive of the second half, I mean, guys were just running quick little button hooks, quick little curls. It was
Ball's gonna
very
have his
much,
hand.
hey, we're going to, get ball, get the ball, get the snap, get rid of the ball. And
How do you beat pressure? Get the ball out of your hands.
Right. And also anytime I'm trying to work on a video, like a little bit of a short right now of looking at how the Ravens blitzed in the first half, looking at some key plays on that first drive of the second half.
Yeah.
And then also, whenever the Texans rushed 4, and there were some times where they were playing zone and sometimes where they were playing man. Whenever the Texans rushed 4 and they didn't have a spy on Lamar, drop back, let them get upfield, run. And those were the big scrambles happened, not when they were blitzing, not when they were either rushing 3. Texans don't really rush 3. They either rush 4 or really they don't really rush 5 or 6. And I think that's why the Ravens were thrown off, Dalton, because the Texans run 4 and they have one of the lowest blitz rates in the NFL. And they rush 4 guys at one of the highest rates in the NFL. So that's why I think it threw the Ravens for a loop a little bit in that first half.
They went against status quo, what the tendency is.
Right. So they made that adjustment. Lamar made that adjustment. They did enough, and then once they got that lead, they ran that damn ball, and they kept the lead. And the defense played spectacular as well.
Especially in that second half, too. Jackson, I do want to mention off of the blitzing point that Jackson faced a career-high blitz rate of 75%, and he went 13 for 18, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns versus the blitz this game. And another note, Lamar Jackson, when we talk about Lamar Jackson, it's really hard to quantify him sometimes based on his ability as a passer and a runner. This is a very simple stat, folks. There's been 7 instances when a quarterback has run for 100 yards in a playoff game. Lamar Jackson has now done it 3 times. He owns 3 of those 7 times a quarterback has run for 100 yards in the playoffs.
Crazy.
He is that dude. Like Lamar Jackson, whether it's in the passing game, whether it's in the running game, he creates plays. He's the first quarterback since 1948. I saw this either on The Athletic or ESPN. It's a great stat. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, and 100 plus passer rating. First time that's happened since 1948, whether that's a regular season or a playoff game, and he does it in a divisional round. Let's Baltimore host a conference championship for the first time since the 70s when it was the Baltimore Colts.
Here's my hope for Baltimore's defense going up against Kansas City. And ideally, I mean, this is how every team should play, but even a defense coordinator like DeMeco Ryans saw a dynamic player like Lamar and said even though he should be on a do not blitz list, he blitzed him, and it kind of worked. Here's my hope for the Ravens, though. Play too high and force Patrick Mahomes and force this offense to be perfect. If they are going to run 12-play drives and they're going to put the ball in the end zone and they're going to score touchdowns against your red zone defense, let them earn it.
And off of that point, Justin, if I'm the Chiefs offense and I'm seeing too high from Baltimore, Baltimore's been really good against the run.
Force them to run.
Let's see what Pacheco does versus front.
Which Pacheco's good.
Pacheco's really good.
That Chiefs offensive line's good. The scheming and getting Pacheco space, it's been good. And Pacheco yards after contact, I'm sure, is amazing too. You're seeing it with your eyes. Force them to do that.
And I will say that the Chiefs' rushing offense is way better than Houston. Houston runs for 38 yards in that game. They did nothing. No. Like, this game was 10-10 at halftime, and Houston still was unable to do anything on the ground. The score says 34-10 because the Ravens outscored them 24-0 in the second half. But it was a 10-10 game. Keami Fairbairn misses a field goal, which could have had Houston in the lead going into halftime, too. But once again, the Baltimore defense, led by defensive coordinator Mike McDonald calling plays, couldn't run the ball.
The Chiefs do not have explosive players. Travis Kelce is not he's an explosive player, sure. Hall of Famer, whatever. The Chiefs do not have explosive players. Rashee Rice is good. MVS is good, but
don't put Rice and MVS in the same group.
For the corners and the secondary that you have, though, they should not be good. Those players should not be good against your players, against your All-Pro, Pro Bowl secondary that has locked teams down and kicked ass.
Yeah.
Every game.
I'm with you. I'm a big Rice stain for how good
he's been. To be perfect.
Yeah.
And if they are,
tip your cap.
Tip the cap.
Yep.
Congratulations. But odds are they're not. Odds are Jawan Taylor is going to have a false start. He's going to hold, right? Odds are MVS, somebody
drops a pass.
You're going to have a holding call. Something is, even Kelsey's been dropping the ball. Something is going to happen. They're going to make a mistake, and then you will capitalize off of it. Don't break tendency. Play too high. Have your front four, if they're going to get home and they're going to win, hey, if you want to bring Patrick Queen in every once in a while, do it. If you want to show the cover zero looks, show it, but drop out of it. Get out of it.
Mix and match.
Keep Queen on a spy. Like Christian Harris, I actually thought did a really good job against the Texans, kind of spying on Lamar a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what Patrick Queen should be doing against Mahomes. Easier said than done because Mahomes is fast, and you can get lost in the sauce with the line and where these guys go. But force the Chiefs to be perfect and force Andy Reid to call first and second down runs to put them in a good spot on third down or avoid third down. Give them the running fronts and see if they are dedicated and disciplined enough to stick with it. Odds are they're not. They won't be disciplined enough. And hey, in the Super Bowl and when it came down to it with 2 minutes to go against the Bills and in that final drive, Andy Reid was disciplined. Gave Isaiah Pacheco the ball, and man, he proved it. Let's see it in quarters 1 through 3. He can do it. They can do it. But will Andy Reid be disciplined enough when the running fronts are there to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands? That's a tough ask. And I want the Ravens to invite, here's a running front. Take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. That's a win for us.
Yeah. Anytime Patrick Mahomes does not have the ball, it is a win for the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm extremely passionate because the Ravens have this defense where it's, too high, right? It's the modern day thinking of we're going to prevent the big pass play. That's the bread and butter of their defense. Obviously, you could throw wrinkles in there. You're not running too high every single play. But I'm extremely passionate, and I'm extremely excited to see how this game in particular plays out because of how the Ravens have played defense, their brand of defense, what they call, and the Chiefs' deficiencies, and how the Ravens could possibly take advantage of that. But if they get undisciplined, and I think if they start blitzing a ton and Patrick Mahomes runs around, that's where some big plays can open up.
Dude, 100%. Let's see Mahomes do it. Mahomes versus Ravens defense. 2-time MVP versus soon-to-be 2-time MVP. Number 1 overall pick facing Mr. Irrelevant. Conference championship ball, Justin Penik. We're almost here, Pop. Let's go.
Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Oh, man. So here are your 4 options, folks. Please comment what you think. I'm going to read them to you. It could be Niners-Chiefs, rematch of Super Bowl 54. It could be Niners-Ravens, rematch of Super Bowl 47. It could be Lions-Chiefs, rematch of opening night of the 2023 season. First game that starts, last game that ends. It could be this one's a little tough. This is the rematch of the Justin Tucker NFL record kick match, where Tucker hit a game-winning field goal versus the Lions, 66-yarder. Lions-Ravens is an opportunity. I think I'm going to go chalk and stay with the 1 seeds between the Ravens and the Niners. I feel more confident about the Ravens. I think that's kind of crazy to say. I really trust that defense. Lamar has been playing out of his mind.
It is crazy to say.
Yeah, it's not no disrespect to Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs. I just think the Ravens have been that good, and they've almost played perfect ball throughout the entire season. So I personally want the Lions to win. I think it's going to be Niners versus the Ravens. Justin Penik, thoughts?
Lions-Ravens.
Lions-Ravens. So we both have the Ravens. Okay.
Which odds are it's going to be the Chiefs.
Bobby Skinner has picked the Giants to move on to the Super Bowl.
Odds are it's going to be the Chiefs. I'm serious.
The NFL wants, you ready? Let me tell you what the NFL wants. I'm saying it now. The NFL wants Chiefs, Lions.
Oh, yeah.
Here's why. Taylor Swift versus Eminem.
I want Dan Campbell for an entire week, media week.
Oh, my gosh. He's going to be eating more than kneecaps, folks. Oh, my goodness.
That's what I want.
Swift versus Eminem, opening rematch of the 2023 season. Lions won that game.
I want Dan Campbell in Vegas. I want to go to a craps table with Dan Campbell.
And you know what they say about Vegas? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Dan Campbell wins the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. He never leaves Vegas.
He's going to party with circus lions. Or real lions. I don't know. Are circus lions real? Yeah.
Circus lions are real.
They're real.
But we got rid of those. We don't do that anymore.
Oh, okay.
Those are your power rankings, folks. Odds are you'll see us next week. And hey, maybe we'll even have a surprise power rankings episode after the Super Bowl to really get excited to see who's 1 and 2.
We're flipping 32 and 1. It's going backwards.
Oh man, the Panthers are at 1.
Woo!
We'll see you next week, folks. Enjoy football. Peace. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.